Yo, what's poppin', guys? And today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different tutorial. Today I'm going to be teaching you the basics of pixel art. Hey there, I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, me. Go subscribe to my second channel, DkGalaxy, where you can see me play games for hours at a time. I've recently started to post 3 videos a day there, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. I tend to swear a bit in those ones too, so if you're a little rebel edgy boy, that's a great place for you to go and hang out. But yeah, anyways, back to the video. Now I'm not a master at pixel art, but I generally know what's going on. And today, for my examples, I will be teaching you how to create character art. And for an example, I'm going to be using a Fakeamon. A Fakeamon is a fake Pokemon. And I'm going to show you 2 easy ways to do that. The first thing you're going to want to do is go off of Scratch. You can do it on Scratch, I just prefer not to. You go to this website called Pixel Art, pixelart.com. And you have this little canvas, right? This canvas where you can put down pixels. And you'll see these tools right away. The first thing I'd immediately go to, yes, ads pop up. First thing I'd immediately go to is this pixel size. Okay, and you can see how you can scroll this up to get huge pixels. Or you can scroll it down to get slightly smaller pixels. I don't like using big pixels because I can't drag like that. Say I wanted to drag like that, it looks too bulky. It looks too bulky compared to doing something like that. So I like to keep it at 1. The Pokemon standard for their pixel arts are 2x2s, right? Like for their battle arts, they are 2x2s. But I like to use 1x1 so they immediately track next to each other really nicely. Then you'll see you have the eraser tool. This brush tool I never really liked. It just makes a weirder line, not really meant for what I'm doing exactly. You have the line tool, which does exactly what you think it'd do. You have the circle tool, does exactly what you think it'd do. The square tool, exactly what you'd think it'd do. You have the bucket tool, which can fill in things. You know how that goes. You have the color picker, if you want to choose a different color. The move tool, which will move whatever is on your current layer. Speaking of which, you can add as many layers as you would like. You have the select tool, so you can select specific sections of your work. The text tool, the light and darken tool, the dithering tool. I'm not going to be focusing on the text tool, the light darken tool, the dither tool, the stamp tool. Yeah. The stamp tool, the spray paint tool. Which, this is why I'm not going to be covering it. The gradient tool, the hand tool, the filter tool, or the crop tool. I'll just be focusing on the pencil, the eraser, the line, circle, square, bucket, color picker, movement, and select tool. So now, anyways, say you can't come up with a design. Well, I'm going to be showing you how I would come up with a good Pokemon design if I couldn't think of one off the top of my head. This website is called the Nokamon, right? And it generates fake Pokemon using AI. From here, you can choose either your type, a color, right, or you can randomize it entirely. So if you wanted to type, you could do, say you're looking for a ghost type. You can go ahead and click generate, and it'll generate a completely random Pokemon using the ghost type. See, this one it generated was ghost and poison, and it looks like this. Let's generate another one. See if we can find one that looks cool. Ghost dragon type, pretty interesting. See if we can't find another one. See if we can't find a super interesting looking one. Ghost poison. I want to find one that's basic enough that this doesn't take a super long time. See, this one's kind of basic. Let's go with this one. Okay? All we need to do really is we can save this image to your desktop or wherever you want to save it. Okay? And then what you can do is you can come back to here. You can do file, open a photo, find that photo that you want, and then boom, here's the photo. So, if you're doing Pokemon, the standard Pokemon size is 96 by 96 pixels. See that this is much bigger. This says it's 512 by 512, but that's fine. That's totally fine because we're not going to actually be using just this thing. This is going to be just a reference, right? Just a reference. Because do not trace. Anyways, so what we can do is we can have this picture opened up somewhere else. So I'm just going to do new. Again, I do 96 by 96 since that's the common Pokemon size. Boom. Here's my 96 by 96 file. Cool. Now what I'll do is I'll open up picture that we took, the screenshot that we have, and I'm going to just open that up on a second screen. Okay, and now we'll actually get into the basics of the designs on how to create Fakemon designs. Well, not just specifically Fakemon, any kind of design. This is the basics. I'm just using Fakemon as an example. So, what might be a good idea for you is to make a layer, get rid of your background layer, because you don't really need it. Well, I guess you can use your background layer, and create a little bit of a sketch, right? So, our Fakemon kind of had like a little head, so we could probably make it a lot smaller, because no Pokemon art is like generally this large. Especially if you wanted to add like animation, having a full screen is never a good idea. I'd always do it smaller. I'd always keep it like within the vicinity so you have a huge amount of bleed space. So let's say he has his head, and he had like a little bit of an ear here. Okay, boom. A little bit of his ear. And then he had these little arms that came out. His arms are connected to his face. And again, this is just a sketch. So you get a little basic sketch going, and boom. Here. Now I can teach you what this move tool does. By pressing M on your keyboard or just by selecting the tool on the sidebar, you can grab it and move it wherever you'd like it to either center it better or do something like along those lines of making them look a little bit nicer. I'm going to make a little bit of a better sketch though. That was just a basic idea of what a sketch would look like. But say I wanted to look nice, I do a little head. So realistically, I don't need a super big head. His ear, rest of his head. And then he had, well, he'd need a second ear. And then he had his little arms that came out, connected to his head. Then he had his body, which came down. And again, this is just a sketch. You don't have to worry about it being good. So boom, there's my Fakemon sketch art. Then what you do is you make a new layer. See how this layer is above? This is where a Fakemon sketch is. You can click this anytime to toggle it off and on. And then I want to go to my new layer. But first, I want to drag down the opacity of the first layer. This, it's see-through. And then I come up to my second layer, and then I can start actually doing the little bit of a better art. So again, I'm just using this as a base. So it's probably not going to be the exact same size. So as I'm working on this art, I'm trying to think of what the shapes should look like, right? So I have the general shape, which is super nice to have. So I go ahead and I keep working on it. And generally, for me at least, I never like to have corners that look like this. I think it's too bulky. So I like to cut down on them, right? I never like to fill in the corner like that. I like to keep them separate, because I personally think that it looks nicer. And I like to keep these long lines as short as possible. So if anything, what you could do is I'm going to make his head come up a little bit more. So like maybe it comes down and then comes up a little bit, comes back down. At any point you can hide the backdrop layer to see how you're doing. And I think that looks really awkward. So what I'll do is maybe I'll keep the line and we'll see what the ear does for it. Okay, and then I'll work on this second ear. And then boom, we can hide the back. I think it's looking fairly good so far. So let's move back in. I'd like to do the total outline first, and then just see how that looks. If these ads pop up all the time. I'm not a big fan of them. See, for corners like this, I don't necessarily mind having that line, because it's like a tip fin of a corner. And if I were to get rid of that, there'd just be 2 little pixels in one little area. But I'll keep it just for the sake of convenience, because maybe it will end up looking nice at the end. Okay, and then I'll hide to see if that arm looks nice. I like it. I think it looks good. Then we'll kind of just boom. See if I like that. They look pretty even. I like how they look. See, and then how I have it like this, I actually like how this looks, so I'll balance it out on the other side and do the same thing. Again, it's a lot about preference. It's a lot about preference with your pixel art, but I generally think that pixel art is, I'm not going to say pixel art is easy to do, because I don't agree with that. I don't think pixel art's very easy at all. It took me a hot minute to get used to doing stuff like this. And no, I want like, okay, I want it to connect like this, but that's too long of a line. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of balance it out a little bit. Then I'll use this eraser tool to make it look better. Boom, and I like that. Let's hide the backdrop. And boom, there you go. You can always tell which ones are hidden because the circle will be there. Black circle's there, it's hidden, which always seems a little backwards to me, but that's just how it works. So boom, I like the outline. This is my final outline. Well, not final, you'll see what we'll do later. So I'll hide this, I'll show it again, just so I can, well, I don't even really need to show it again, it's just kind of for an idea. And now I want to start working on his eyes. So let's say I want his eyes. So what we'll do, we'll just make basic little eyes. And he had his little red cheeks too. If I remember, I'll put the picture of what he looks like on screen. He had like his little mouth. Then he had his second eye. Chilling, just like this. Then he also had a cheek on this side. Hide the back. And you'll see that pixels will touch like this. I'm not super worried about that for what the last step of this is going to be. So, next he had his little nose. And boom, look at him. He's looking fantastic. He looks so happy. I might want to adjust his mouth a little, so I'll grab the select tool. And then I can select all the pixels I want. And then, after I select them, I can grab the move tool. Oh, excuse me. Grab the select tool. You can see we can rotate stuff. If we want to, we can make him angry. But then it connects with his nose too much. It's like, ew. Okay. So let's grab his mouth. And then you see with his mouth, you can even make it larger. Like, let's say I want his mouth to kind of come down a little bit more like that. Which honestly doesn't even look that bad. Doesn't necessarily look good, but it kind of matches his actual style a little bit better. So I just wanted to move his mouth down a little bit. Yeah, no, we'll get rid of these corner pieces. There we go. Okay, there's his face. And then he did have some features on his body. Like he had these kind of little lines, just like this. So I'll add those. Looks nice. He actually had like a whole kind of blackish outline. So we'll worry about that in a second. Now you see he had these like big fins in the back. I'll add that now as best to my ability. I didn't actually make a sketch of this, so it might look a little bit wonky. I kind of forgot he had those until I just glanced at him again. So it kind of comes down like this. His arm in reality is like up here, but you know, it's all about fixing it to your own style. I'm using this as a base, not an actual what I'm doing. So this guy was ghost and water. So his fin kind of came down. And then you can imagine his fin coming in this way. So I'll kind of put it in like this. And then boom, he has his little fin. Okay, say I like that. Now I can move on to the next part, which is where I hide the background layer entirely and start picking out colors. So I'd grab your bucket tool right away, and then see here, you have 2 colors picked out. You have this whole palette right here full of random colors, and if you pull down this drop down, you can get other ones. Like there's a whole one set for skin tones, if you are one who has trouble picking out skin tones and stuff like that. I never use this. I always pick my own color, and you can do that by clicking on your primary color. You see you can have 2 at a time. By clicking this, you switch to white and black, and then you can easily swap between 2 colors you want. You can click on this, and then it opens up this big color wall, and you can pick anything you want. So my guy was like a blue. He was like a bright blue, kind of. So I'll pick like something like this. And then I'll fill in his general, what he looks like generally, right? So here's his base outline color, and then he had red eyes. He had like these red looking eyes. And then red cheeks as well. So this is generally what he looked like, his flat colors. And if you're happy with this, you're happy with this. But I'm going to move on to some shading now. So what you can do is you can grab the color picker and grab what you want. Do keep in mind that it doesn't work perfectly. So see if I want to grab this black. Okay, that time it worked for some reason. Okay, but if you see if I grab over here at this nothing block, it grabbed black. Keep that in mind sometime. If you have some colors and you want to grab one, and for some reason it's not letting you, try coming really close over to the side of the block, and it'll do a little bit better. Anyways, so I'll grab what I want, and I'll do a little bit of a darker. Generally, if you want a general advice for shading pixel art, at least how Pokemon work, same I'm doing that. This is the sun, and the sun comes from this angle for most Pokemon art. So I'll actually make a new layer specifically for this sun, just so you can see it and understand what I'm doing. But again, you could place this sun anywhere. So let's go in. And so obviously, I'm going to start with the darker color. So I'd grab a little bit of a darker blue. And generally, you can take wherever the circle is and move to the corner. Move down into a corner. I'll get you a little bit of a darker color. So if the sun's coming from here, this side is going to be brighter and this side is going to be darker. So I'll start darkening up this side. And I don't like it. I'm still on the color picker. Move to your pencil tool. I don't like to be super perfect with it, mainly because I'm not super perfect with it. But you can do stuff like this on a lot of his body. Okay, say you want something like this. Something like this. You can always adjust stuff to your liking. Say his face, I want his face to do something like this. And then this back ear can be completely filled. Okay, then we grab our bucket tool and we fill in this. Whoop. Okay, I just realized I put all of those things on my sun layer. So here's a good example of what you can do for this situation. What you can do is you can grab the select tool. You can select all this. Since it's only on the layer with the sun and the shading things, I can just Control C that to copy it. And I can grab all that and do delete to do that. I go into the second layer and paste it. And then I can adjust it to the best of my abilities onto that area. What I'm just going to do is I'll just redo it on this layer. So again, I'll come through. Kind of grab how I generally want it to look. Coming around. Again, you can always adjust later, however you'd like. And his face. I want it to kind of like come down to his mouth and come down here. And I wanted to fill in his entire ear. Now I'll grab our bucket tool and fill in this side of everything. Boom, and now we got something like this. But we need brighter colors too. So we'll grab our color picker and grab our original color and go up to the other side to get a brighter. And then you can start adding little highlights. Right? So I want the highlight to come down like this. Like this. Then I realize I need to fill this in, that little block. I can grab my bright color again, come back to doing this. And for the highlight, it never tends to be as big, so I'm not super worried about it. There wouldn't necessarily be a highlight here, just because it's under his arm and under his head at the same time. So I'm generally happy with this. Now, if you like this and this is how you like it, then you're done here. But I don't like to have these thick black lines. So what I can do is change that. But first, actually, I want to mess with his eyes. I want to mess with his eyes a little bit. So I'll grab a white, and I'll add little highlights to his eyes like this. And then I'll grab his red, the red color of his eye, and I'll make it a little bit darker. And I'll add them right here, just like this. I can also add that to the bottom of his gems. Then I'll make an even darker red. I'll put that at the top. Then I'll grab a super bright red, and I'll put it under here like this. I'll do the same on his cheeks. And then boom. His eyes look a little bit better now. Look a little bit nicer. But anyways, now to these lines. I don't like these black lines. If you like them, that's totally cool. But I don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it look a little bit more standoutish. So what we can do is take this bright. I like to start with the brights. Take our bright blue. And what I'll do is I'll make it even brighter. Slightly. Not a whole bunch. Just a little bit. And then whenever these blue are touching is where I will add this sort of thing, right? And I'll brighten up the sides that are touching this super bright blue. That blue's touching here, so I can go ahead and do this. And I like to do the brights first because it's easy to switch the brights to darks later on if you really want to. So boom. And then what I can do is I can take this, make it a little bit darker, or actually a little bit brighter is what you'd want to do. And I can use that to connect these ones. And that looks a bit awkward, so I'll grab this one and I'll do that instead. So it's just going through and touching up what you want to touch up. That's what a lot of this is. It's a lot of just trying things and seeing how you like it. So let's grab this dark, and now we're on this side of him. But first, I want to grab a slightly brighter version of this blue and fill in this part. The parts that's just towards the sun. So it might stop right there. Might stop right here. And then I'll grab a darker version of that blue to fill in the other parts. And again, if you don't think things look good, mess around with it. Mess around with it, find what you like. Now I want an even darker blue for the way back of him. Something just like this. I think personally looks good. So you see how it's already coming to life a little bit more, which is what I like. And I'm going to do the dark blues here until they connect right there. Then I'm going to grab an even darker one, slightly darker, and fill in the rest of this. And obviously your command Control-Z for undoing something works just as it would in many other painting programs. And then here it's getting closer to there, so I want my slightly brighter dark blue to finish this off. And then boom, there's his full outline done. But now I want to mess around with his eyes and his cheeks. See how it doesn't touch here anymore, but the lines aren't black, so it doesn't look awkward. So I feel like I might want this to be a blue. I might want this to follow the blue colors. Maybe that's what I want, right? So that it's just that. Or maybe you'd want to grab the reds of his eyes. Who knows? For this, I never like the black lines, but you do need some of these. So what I do is I just make it a dark gray. I personally think it looks a little nicer to have a dark gray. But if you like the black, you go with the black. I'd grab an even darker gray for like the sides. And maybe a slightly brighter gray. Oh, maybe a slightly brighter gray for like this side. So that you get this looking thing. Oh boy, not that. This one. Okay. But I think that this looks good. I like this. So boom, here is my finished sprite work. It's not perfect, but I think it looks pretty nice. I like it personally. So then bam, there's my finished artwork. Now, what you can see here, if you wanted to do animation with the software, you can. If you go ahead and tap add frame, you see you have 2 frames here now. And you see it automatically has an onion skinning effect on where you can see it. So you might want to do all these at once, right? You might want to do each of these steps at once. Like you do all the outlines, you do all the sketches, then all the outlines and all the coloring. But this is just generally how I do it. And then you could always do preview and it'd run what it looks like. But yeah, so boom, there you go. There's how I make my pixel art. And again, this goes for anything. You can really do anything you want with this, right? You can do people, you can do buildings, anything you want. I just use Pokemon as an example. But yeah, I'm going to leave the episode here. So thank you all so much for watching. If you liked it, then like it. If you didn't like it anyways, because pixel art. And while you're at it, want to subscribe to the channel if you have a content that helped me out a lot. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Peace. Hey there. I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, me. Go subscribe to my second channel, DkGalaxy, where you can see me play games for hours at a time. I've recently started to post 3 videos a day there, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. I tend to swear a bit in those ones too, so if you're a little rebel edgy boy, that's a great place for you to go and hang out. But yeah, anyways, back to the video.